repeated postponing of the signature of the text without an explanation being ever given, exclusion of the EU Parliament demands that they were expressed on several occasions in our Assembly. It says, as a rapporteur of this text, I've faced never-before-seen manoeuvres from the right wing of this Parliament to impose a rushed calendar before public opinion could be alerted, thus depriving the Parliament of its right to expression and of the tools at its disposal to convey citizens' legitimate demands. So he says, everyone knows the ACTA agreement is problematic, whether it's of its impact on civil liberties, the way it makes internet access providers liable, its consequences on generic drug manufacturing, or how little protection it gives to our geographical indications. And he goes on and on as well, beefing off about the fact that it's all done in secrecy. And he wrote the darn thing up for them. Now he's walked off in disgust, he claims. But I mean, the EU is the ideal system that we have to go into in North America. In fact, for the whole of the Americas under the NAFTA agreement. Non-democratic. It's to be run by this bunch at the top that literally no one knows who they are. You'll have a bunch of representatives who can stand and argue and make jokes at each other and harangue each other, but they have no power to make law or change law. So what's the point in having them? So we have to all copy the same system. We are post-democratic, if you haven't noticed. But anyway, there's a guy who wrote the darn thing up, complaining himself about it. There's so much corruption in this age that we live in. It's out in the open. In the older days, we were better at hiding it, the corruption, up in politics, up at what you thought was respectable organizations. They were much better at dealing with it. And we've already read about Haiti and all the billions of dollars of your cash has gone into reconstructing Haiti from the years ago earthquake that they had. And they're still living in the same mess as it today as they were then. Because all these United Nations umbrella organizations get in like a shot and spend it all on themselves. And then they're off to the beach parties and things in Haiti when the folk there can't even get drinking water. No kidding. So I'll put an article up tonight about that. It says, Haiti and the shaming of the aid zealots, how donated billions have increased poverty and corruption. Nothing new really about that, but nothing is what it seems to be, is it? And absolutely nothing is what it seems to be. And Japan logged its first trade deficit since 1980. And that's bad news for the Japanese, and who've been suffering an awful lot in so many ways now. Now, going to New Zealand, Goldman Sachs is all over the planet, you understand. They're acting like brokerage firms. They are the military-industrial complex, I should add. All the things that they own underneath them are all the big corporations in the military-industrial complex. But they say here, Goldman Sachs Group Inc. and Macquarie Group Limited, a partnership of First New Zealand Capital and Credit Suisse Group AG, will manage the initial public offering of Mighty River Power Limited as New Zealand's government starts the biggest round of state asset sales in more than 20 years. It's going the way of Greece. But again, this is something that's more interdependent, you see. Denationalize everybody. That's what it's all about too. And selling off your assets to foreign corporations. I'll put this article up tonight as well. But there's Goldman Sachs all over the place. Goldman Sachs also did the books for Greece and said they were financially floatable, basically, and capable of joining the EU. They cooked the books. This biggest, most powerful financial corporation on the planet cooked the books. And didn't get a slap on the wrist for it. And now they're doing it with Croatia and other countries. They're doing the same books for them so they can get into the EU. You understand, we have no judicial system. I hate that word because it doesn't mean what you think it is. But we don't have a system to deal with these. It's not written because the same characters own the legal system. It won't happen. So they can keep doing the same scams over and over and crashing countries left, right, and center. Another article too is on how they're cutting back on releasing information that the taxpayer paid for such as this one. It says, no science for you. Congress wants to limit your access to research, even though your tax dollar is paid for it. If this bill passes, you'll learn only what mainstream medicine wishes you to know. In 2008, the National Institutes of Health required that all federally funded research publications be made openly available to the public. PubMed Central is a free full-text archive of biomedical and life sciences journal literature at the National Institutes of Health's National Library of Medicine. The publishers of the journals weren't so happy with this new arrangement. They were afraid no one would pay for their publications if the research results were immediately accessible, so the government agreed to give them a full year of journal sales before the research papers had to be posted on PMC, which lets them keep their subscriber base. Journal subscriptions to educational and medical institutions are expensive and they're big business. But even this generous arrangement isn't good enough for the Association of American Publishers. The trade group liked the old rules where they could sell the tax-funded research back to the taxpayers. So the AAP got 2 members of Congress, Carolyn Maloney from New York and Representative Darrell Issa from California, to introduce H.R. 3699, the Research Works Act, just before the end of 2011. The bill would prevent the NIH or other agency from causing or even allowing private sector research work to be disseminated online without prior consent of both publisher and the study authors, even if the funding came from our tax dollars. So they're changing all the rules and everything, basically. Well, what are peasants for except just to pay the tax? Cough up, fill those uniforms now. We need to, no more active bodies, those uniforms, and fight another war for us here and there. And they've no problem getting that to happen. No problem whatsoever. This one here shows you how ridiculous it's going to get worse, actually, with bureaucrats in charge and technocracy. This is from, again, I think was it New Zealand? Man in coma loses benefits as he's classified fit for work, it says. The government's decision to crack down on the disabled took a bizarre turn this week after a man in a coma was stripped of his benefits because he'd not handed his fitness for work questionnaire in. It's in the UK, it says. And it says, so the client's husband is in a hospital in a coma, and he was sent this thing to fill in, ESA 501. You can't fill it in because he's in a coma. These are catch-22, right? The decision is part of a lengthening list of seemingly nonsensical judgments handed down by ATOS Healthcare's since it was appointed to oversee benefits claims in 2005. This is the beauty, too, of farming out to private corporations or bureaucrats. Another notable case is that of Larry Newman, who was told to stop slacking and get back to work despite having an incurable lung disease which killed him just months after his assessment. It says the firm was targeted repeatedly over the last few years by campaigners under the banner ATOS Kills, with activists pointing to a sharp rise in applications against the decisions being made, with 40% appeals being successful, overall rising to 70% where legal representation is used. So here's the guy, can't get benefits because he has to sign a form, but he's in a coma. You see? And the bureaucrats they'll take years to fix that out. Has to go to committee and get all rewritten in subcommittees and reassessment and all that stuff. And you know what it's like, you know. Now Canada too has joined all the rest of it. See, we're global. And this article says, will the Harper government increase the qualifying age for old age security? They're heading back on old age security and pensions across the world. It started with Greece, of course. Britain's doing the same thing. This article here says the link between the state pension and earnings will also be restored within the next parliament. This says they want the state pension will age to rise to 68. They know damn well we're not living as long as we used to, by the way, if you don't know that. They'll keep that quiet and under wraps for as long as they can. We're not. We're dying younger. And so they don't want you to get to the pensionable age, but they just want to snafu your pension. I'll put those links up as well. And now I'll go to the callers, if I can get this up on my wonderful satellite here, and see what comes up. And there's Sean from New York on the line. Are you there, Sean?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I was reading your book and I stumbled onto something about the deacon, the priest.
Mm-hmm.
and how much it was such like con men. And what crossed my mind is did it ever cross their mind? Did they think they were conned into thinking they were superior than the other race of human civilization, like kings? Did they ever cross their mind that they were conned into thinking these ways? Because it's just the thought about it is just they were con men, and they just continue doing what their teachers told them to do.
I think a lot of them, and in every generation you're going to get the con men going into what seems to be easy work. And that's still true today. I can remember a guy telling me, he said when he was going to university, he asked a professor what was the best job to take, easiest job to take to get good money and pension schemes and care. And he's going to either religion or become a lawyer, a really high lawyer. And that's how it's always been. In ancient times, the priests no doubt had some kind of, in a small tribal setting, you ever had a witch doctor? We call them witch doctors. Of course, they didn't call them witch doctors. They didn't know what a witch was. But the fact is, he would have basically handed down treatments for ailments, etc. He was looked up to. He could also give guidance on spiritual matters. It's when you have organization coming in a moneyed system, that everything goes to blazes, because then it's used by the elite who dominate the money, and then they own the priesthoods to keep the people stupid. Back with more after this break. Hi folks, we're back, cutting through the matrix, and just finishing with Sean, just to say that also ancient priests, I'm talking about Egyptian and even before Egyptian priests too, really were also lawyers. If you go into the Sumerians, you'll find there were lawyers. They did all the work on division of land. A credible amount of information is turned up on them. And very, very organized as well. And so they could read, write, do mathematics, and of course they naturally thought themselves superior to the general masses. Once money comes in, a big money system, that's what you end up with. And unfortunately, you can't separate the two with money. Everything will be used to keep the people subdued. It doesn't matter what religion it is. And it's done very quickly too. And of course they naturally feel superior than the rest of the general public. Now we'll go to Daniel from the UK, if he's still there. You still there, Daniel? Hello?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. You just mentioned briefly before about these fat cats and how their health always seems to be good, considering the abuse they put themselves through. Well, do you know anything about that Royal Raymond Rife frequency machine? Because I read about that, and apparently he lived the last 2 decades of his life like hitting the bottle, and he should have been dead, but he kept using this machine and it kept him alive. Do you know anything about that?
Well, that machine has been given again. You understand, in every field of health, I don't care what it is, there's a lot of cons go on. Sometimes there's a bit of truths go on as well, but there's a lot of sharks because, if little Jimmy's sick and he's going to die, everybody's going to chip in or mortgage their homes to try to keep him alive. And the sharks have been in there. It's always been full of sharks on all sides of medicine. That's the alternate medicine, including general medicine, allopathic. So, you get incredible claims. Now, the first claim with Rife machine was it was a tube. And actually, you'll see that in the old film footage of it. It was not a long, almost like a fluorescent tube that flashed through the body, almost like an X-ray, in fact. And this is what they claimed would kill off cancer cells. So it started off for killing off cancer cells. Now there's machines out there they claim they're the same thing. They're not. They don't have these bulbs in them at all. You just tape them on your fingers or something, and all these settings. And they're supposed to cure everything under the sun. So you have to use your own reasoning here. It comes down to belief as opposed to fact, and people go generally with belief or desperation and part with thousands of bucks. So be very, very careful. But there's a